Welcome to Lesson 1 in Unit 14, Change Over Time. In this lesson, students will work to answer the question, what can we learn about a plant's life by making careful observations? In K2 mySci Life Science units, students have explored the basic needs of plants and animals, how parents and babies are similar yet different, basic diversity of plants and animals, and flower pollination. Students have made models to show pollination. This unit will build on that knowledge by introducing life cycles, inheritance, and natural selection. To begin, students describe a plant's life cycle by planting seeds and watching time-lapse videos of plants growing. Students will figure out that plants have a life cycle with 4 stages of birth, growth, reproduction, and death. A plant's life cycle can be interrupted if it is not able to reproduce. This lesson is approximately 4 days. Take some time to explain to students that they are going to be learning how both individual organisms and group of organisms change over time. To begin, tell students, this unit is all about life cycles, how living things look, and how living things change over time. In this unit, we are going to answer the question, how can we develop a model to compare the life cycles of different living things? What do you think we need to know in order to be able to meet this design challenge? What questions do you have about this design challenge? Ask students to turn and talk to a partner, then share out some answers to the whole class. You may want to write some of their ideas and questions on a piece of chart paper to revisit throughout the unit. In the engaged portion of this lesson, students will be introduced to the unit phenomenon, the case study of pink katydids, found on teacher page 2. After reading, ask students, what questions do you have about this story and the data observed? What would you like to figure out about this? Can you explain what is happening with the pink and green katydids? Chart student questions, but do not answer them at this time. Students will track what they have figured out over the course of the unit. Tell the class, we will look at the life cycle of living things starting with plants. We are going to plant and observe 4 kinds of seeds. An observation is something you notice with your senses. You will use your eyes and hand lenses to see the seeds up close. Put the students into groups. Give each group just 1 or 2 of each type of seed along with the hand lenses. In the Explore, have each group of students examine the seeds and come up with ways that they are the same and different. Record their ideas on the board. If students do not point this observation out, you may want to point out that the seeds that look similar probably come from the same kind of plant. Point out to students that we can notice the patterns of similarity or difference between seeds and use these patterns to classify the seeds. After the students examine the seeds, discard those. Tell the students, now we are going to plant these new seeds and grow plants from them. What do you think our seeds will need to grow? Students may point out that the seeds need water to sprout and sunlight to grow. Next, hand out the plant observation and recording sheet. Give each group of students 2 peat pots filled with soil inside the 2 plastic cups and 6 seeds of 1 type. Refer to the tutorial for photos. Have students draw their seeds on their student page. The student should plant 3 seeds in each peat pot. You may want to allow students to gently water the seeds with the spray bottle provided after they have planted them according to the package instructions. After the students plant the seeds, you should put the peat pots in a warm place and be sure to keep them moist. The warmth will help them sprout faster. If kept warm, they may emerge as fast as 1 week. If not kept warm, it may take up to 3 weeks for them to germinate. Once they sprout, they need plenty of light. Ask students to predict what the plants will look like and how long it will take for them to grow. Have students record their ideas. Refer to the lesson plans for this activity for additional teacher guidance. During the explain portion of this lesson, the students should observe their peat pots every day until sprouts emerge. Once they sprout, the students should record observations, measure them, and continue to water them daily. Students should still fill out their observations on student page 2. As the seeds grow into sprouts, then seedlings, then into young plants, you can begin to talk to students about how the plant is growing and moving through its life cycle. You can introduce the idea of a life cycle to students by talking about humans. For example, we are in our mother's tummy, then we are a baby, then a child, then a teenager, then an adult. Ask students if they know what a cycle is. They may answer that it is something that repeats over and over. In the case of a life cycle, what repeats is that the adult can have a baby, which starts the life cycle again. Explain to students that all living things have their own special life cycle. In this lesson, we are learning about a plant life cycle. Note: if your seeds have not yet germinated and you need to move forward, you can simply show this time lapse of sunflower from seed to flower to students and wait until later to use your planted seeds. Tell students that there are 5 general parts to a flowering plant's life cycle: the seed, the sprout, the seedling, the young plant, and the adult plant with flowers. Be sure to define the life cycle terms for the students. As they watch the video, ask students to point out when they think they see each stage. Remind students that this is a life cycle and the adult plant will make seeds to begin the cycle again. As the seeds grow, talk with students about what they have in common and what makes them different. You may want to use turn and talks or think, pair, share activities to allow all students to explain their thinking on this series of questions. You may want to synthesize their thoughts on chart paper. Ask students, if the plant died before it created flowers, what would that mean? Students may predict that it would not make new plants and the cycle would not go on for those plants. The conclusion that students should reach is that all 4 plants had in common birth, growth, reproduction, and death, regardless of their structural differences. Finally, in the evaluate portion of this lesson, show students the following time-lapse video of corn growing. On the plant life cycle drawing sheet on student page 3, have students draw the stages that they see. Students should be able to draw seed, sprout, seedling, and young plant. You could have students compare their drawings and give each other constructed feedback on their models. If students are having trouble visualizing the adult plant with corn seeds, show them this picture. The optional extend activity offers students the chance to perform an extended experiment with their herbs to see how amounts of water affect plant growth. For instance, they could take chives and give one group of chives normal amounts of water and another group of chives less water than normal. Students could measure and chart growth. Students may observe that less water stunts plant growth. Refer to the lesson plans for additional guidance. During this lesson, students described a plant's life cycle by planting seeds and watching time-lapse videos of plants growing. Students also start an experiment to see the life cycle of plants. Students will use the results from this experiment in a later lesson. Students figured out that plants have a life cycle with 4 stages of birth, growth, reproduction, and death. A plant's life cycle can be interrupted if it is not able to reproduce. This lesson, along with lesson 2 about animals, will prepare students for the next 2 sections, where they will compare organism life cycles and consider the idea that traits are passed on to offspring during the reproduction phase of a life cycle.